Live tonight, New York City. This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City head back to the Bronx to host DC United. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
And hello, everybody. We're in the Bronx here in New York, Yankee Stadium for the big one. There's Matty Lawrence. I'm Glenn Crooks. If you look in between us up there above, that's Chris Sakonis. He hosts our halftime and post-game reports on our live commentary, which will begin at 7:15 with a pregame show featuring Pascal Janssen. Going to play a couple of Pascal clips from that pregame interview for you here on our NYCFC Pregame Live, which we do an hour before kickoff every game. And Matty Lawrence, I know I've had you explain Oasis and the jersey, but it's coming up, right?
It's coming up. It is, well, tomorrow and Monday, Oasis are playing at MetLife out the Jets and Giants Stadium.
Beautiful.
They played Chicago on Thursday. They were in Toronto for a couple of nights, a few days before that as well. So, yeah, I can't wait. I haven't seen them in probably 16, 20 years, something like that, back when I was a young slip of a lad, Glenn. So, yeah, I'm watching them on Sunday and recovering Monday.
Oh, so you're not traveling around with them? You're not doing?
No, I'm not traveling around with them. No, unfortunately, I have a day job. Well, an evening job as it is right now.
Yeah, we are in the early evening. How about the weather in the New York,
Perfect.
New Jersey metropolitan area over the last couple of days, and for players tonight, the conditions really are perfect. Field being watered right now. All right, let's get into this. DC United, woof. So we'll get to them in a moment. New York City FC, woof. They've gone 5 without a loss in MLS. 4 of those on the road were wins. And it's really been an interesting way about them, the New York City Football Club. And most recently is this road triumph at FC Cincinnati, 1-0, as Alonso Martinez scores the game winner. He's getting pretty good at that. He's got 8 game-winning goals, which leads MLS. He has scored the game-winning goal in New York City's last 4 wins. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a bit of import there as to his contributions.
Yeah, there absolutely is. Look, we've been hoodwinked in the last few years into believing that NYCFC can't play away from home, that they're mentally weak, Glenn. That has happened season upon season. I'm not speaking out of turn. That is a fact. But they've been quite magnificent this season, specifically recently. And to go away to FC Cincinnati and to get a win, and all that's relevant is the win, but let's not forget they deserved the win as well, Glenn. I don't think anyone could say they didn't deserve the 3 points. And you're right, in Martinez, they've got a goal scorer, but almost more importantly than the goal scoring bit is he's a match winner. He seems to step up at the right time.
He's got a nice face.
And he's got a great face, and he's got a great hunger and a great desire on the pitch. And I think more than one person has said, whether that's working for MLS pundits or whether it's Pascal Janssen himself, when he's given space and when he has time and the opportunity to run in behind defenses, firstly, you're not going to catch him. And more often than not, he's clinical as well. I think quite often the snapshots he's not quite so good at, but sometimes when he has some time to think about it, he's pretty cool and calculated about his finishing. So we can take nothing away from him. I'm sure you're going to bring up the stat, whether it's now, Glenn, I've led you into it, the stat about 15 goal seasons and his importance, Alonso Martinez's importance to this NYCFC team.
Yeah, he's on the border of back-to-back 15 goal seasons with 14 right now, which would tie David Villa. He's the only other player in the history of the club to have done that. 15 goals in back-to-back seasons. Villa scored 15 goals or more in 4 consecutive seasons. So that'll be the next challenge for Alonso Martinez. Here was the game winner at FC Cincinnati, as you heard it on the New York City FC radio network. New York City has it with O'Neal. O'Neal on the turnover, gets it to Maxi Morales. Here's Alonso Martinez running ahead of the field. Can he score? Yes! New York City opens the scoring! It started with Aiden O'Neal to Maxi Morales to Alonso Martinez. And in the 55th minute, New York City takes the 1-0 lead. Martinez has not gotten free often here in this match tonight, but it was Aiden O'Neill. The ball was played into his territory, and rather than receiving and playing it, he intercepted and passed with the same motion and got it forward to Maxi Morales. With pace, Morales turned, and he found Alonso Martinez. If there were ever a 2-assist goal, that'll be it. Martinez, the finisher, his 14th of the season. Yeah, I know we don't like 2-assist goals, Matty Lawrence, but that would have been it. And yeah, it was just and just like you said, I mean, he got behind the defense. He beat 2 central defenders, and they really had an initial angle on him. I think the one thing we need to give Alonso Martinez credit for, too, is that he's got some strength in his upper body. He knows how to use it off the center backs, and he can wheel his way in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only can he outpace, but at times he can outmuscle centre halves as well. You're absolutely spot on. And the rich vein of form he's in as well, when you are a centre forward, your confidence just grows and grows, Glenn. Equally diametrically opposed to that, if you're in a glut, it's sometimes hard to dig yourself out of that glut. But right now he is in the prime of his life almost. I think he almost is. The age he's at, the ability he's got, the fact that this will be almost definitely, you'd have thought, a second 15-goal season, which is quite phenomenal at any level of football. And when you consider the travelling involved in MLS, the fact that he's playing for the Costa Rican national team as well, it's been quite a hefty workload for him as well. But yeah, I think
he's only looked tired once. Yes, I remember him being pulled from a game, and it was just pure exhaustion.
Well, rarely is he pulled. That's the fact. He works very, very hard as well. As you know, in this team, especially with Pascal Janssen, you've got to work very hard on both sides of the ball. He's the centre forward. That's the first line of the defence. Not only is he a goal scorer, but he is the first line of the defence. And I think at the moment what you've got is a team working very much in synchronisation with each other, but with the coaching staff as well. I think everybody is clearly singing from the same hymn sheet, Glenn. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but they really are right now. This is a team in form, but this is the banana skin. Today's that banana skin.
Well, we're going to get to that. But first I want to talk about Aiden O'Neill, because I thought it was the last couple of games to me have been a bit of a coming out party for him. It's his 13 games in now, 12 starts, but he is really starting to look the part of the midfielder that they hoped that they had acquired. So I brought up O'Neill and the midfield to Pascal. This is part of the pregame show, our 12-minute conversation coming up at 7:15. Here's a clip from that. So Aiden O'Neill, he's 13 games in now since his arrival. DC United, the first time you played them 0-0 down there, was his third game. He came in as a reserve. Yeah. Especially the last couple to 3 games, there seems to be an effectiveness that is, well, he certainly helped provide the Nashville game winner as well, recognizing things. He just seems to be seeing things a little bit earlier, and then we see his passing stroke is exceptional.
Yeah, we're very happy that he's making progress in this direction. This is something that we spoke about from day one when we met before going into this project, and how I saw him within the team. And then once he's in, it starts. You get to know each other, you start to train with each other. He has to get familiar with his teammates. So at that point in time, if you remember correctly, we were also still in a moment where we were using Keaton Parks, yes or no. So to pair him up with somebody in the middle was also part of the discussion. But since he and Pepe are joined together, you could see they're very connected. You see the chemistry between both of them. So that is something that we work on, obviously, on training as well. But it's very joyful to watch when it all comes together in games.
Just watched an interview with Cesc Fabregas. So what he said was 60 to 70% of the battle that's won in football is in the midfield. Is that, are you on that page?
Yes, I'm reading the same book.
But why is that?
I think Fabregas is also, he was brought up in one of the best educational systems in football, La Masia. You can see, and if you understand the game and you approach the game like we do, you know that you have to dominate the central parts, the center part of the pitch. in and out of possession. So when you have guys that understand the game and are able to stay stable on the ball and play possessional games like we try to do, and the same goes for Como at the moment, that's when you dominate your games.
So there's Pascal Janssen, midfield, very important to the way he wants to play. I loved when he said, if you understand the game. So a little Dutch comes out of him there, but he's very clear in his messaging. And Aidan O'Neill is someone, and I hadn't really thought about the fact that O'Neill was with Johnny Shore for a bit. Pereira was injured, in and out. Parks, same thing. So he really didn't have – it's almost like a central defense pairing, is it not, in the midfield? I
was just about to say that, and we talked quite long and hard about the fact that a centre-half pairing doesn't really come into its own until it's played 25, if not 50 games.
Right.
So that not only are you understanding each other in terms of communication, the language that you're speaking, of course, but you just know what your teammate is going to do. Then you don't need the communication all the time. Of course, you're always talking players through the game, but you know what he's going to do. You know that 90% of the time they're going to win their headers or their individual battles or individual duels. And it is absolutely imperative. And I think with Aidan O'Neill as well, I've said to you before, Glenn, even when I move clubs within the same league, within the same country in England, it would still take me 2 or 3 months to truly get acclimatized to the new style of play or to my new teammates or to what the management wanted from me. So for Aidan O'Neill, I think it was almost balderdash for us to expect him to come straight in and be what we'd see, be the finished article that we'd seen at Standard Liège or when he plays for the Australian national team. So yeah, I think finally now, and there's nothing wrong with it having taken him this long, the 13 games, we're seeing him at his best and most effective. And you talk about it really very, very eloquently, Glenn, about that first look, the first look being forward, and that he doesn't take too many touches. He's a 1 and 2 touch footballer. He's always got a picture in that head. He's got a painted picture in his head of where everybody else is, where the opposition is, where the teammates are, so he can manipulate the ball normally with the first touch away from where teammates or the opposition are, and then his weight of pass is normally spot on. Or in that move for the winner against Cincinnati, just a one touch crisp pass into
he
Maxi
talked
Morales.
about just that at the midweek presser. He was the featured New York City player. He talked exactly about that with the addition of Alonso Martinez as well.
Yeah, it's something we really work on here, with the gaffer and in training. When you win the ball, if we can play forward straight away and into our really forward-thinking players and our dangerous players as quickly as possible when, the opposition, might be up the pitch or, quite high. We can really hurt people with the players that we have. He's shown time and time again how dangerous he is, if he can be one-on-one or, sometimes even 2v1 at the back. Centre-backs aren't really sure at times what to do with him. And yeah, he's an excellent player, and if you give him too many opportunities, he'll score goals.
Yeah, the other thing about Alonso Martinez, he surpassed Maxi Morales into third place all alone in the all-time New York City charts behind David Villa and Tati Castellanos. So a lot of talk about Martinez, but with good reason. The only negative about Alonso Martinez, and I know expected goals, sometimes we look at them and go like, what? But his expected goals are 19.3, which is second in the league. He has scored 14. And I think you and I don't want to speak for you, but I think we'd agree that that's pretty accurate because he's missed 4 or 5 that probably should have been in the back of the net.
It feels really harsh to criticize a player who's your top goal scorer and who's probably going to get 2 15-goal seasons, but it's also factual that he's missed some penalties, he's missed some absolute sitters, and you always have to be your own harshest critic. And I think Alonso Martinez himself would say he really should have had 20 goals by now, as the expected goals is saying. Maybe 20's pushing it, but certainly at least 16, 17, shouldn't he?
Yeah. Including the Cincinnati game. So he scores a game winner.
Yeah.
He missed. Tavon Gray put a beautiful ball across, underlapping, getting to the byline. What a service. And from like 3 yards out, Alonso Martinez put it over the bar, which was left many on the coaching team in disbelief. But it it happens. But
it does.
But that's
happen.
an example.
It does happen. But yes, you do have to be critical, and you sometimes at the highest level as well. And MLS is not the highest level. If he went and played in Germany or Italy or Spain or England, he wouldn't get that many opportunities. That's the thing. You've got to convert with each and every opportunity if you can. But look, as of right here, right now, he's doing a sterling job. But yes, hypercritical. He should have a couple more.
Yeah. That's Matty Lawrence. I'm Glenn Crooks. We're getting set for New York City against DC United. Apple Television doing their B-roll to prepare for their broadcast. They're focusing on Luis Barraza. Barraza will be the starting goalkeeper for DC United. He was the New York City reserve keeper, but he did play 38 games over a 4-year plus period, 2020 to 24. He had a wonderful match in the opener this year. DC United hosting New York City 0-0. Barraza 5 saves, and all of them were pretty good, including a couple that were you might put in the spectacular category.
Yeah, he had a wonderful game. I've always been a little bit dubious of whether he can truly be a number one goalkeeper. And look, maybe for a team like DC United, he can be. I don't think I'm speaking to halftime. He has a lot of practice for DC United. Look, they've conceded 53 goals in 28 games.
That's
so
the most in the Eastern Conference.
Basically 2 goals per game. Right. So he gets a lot of practice. He does save an awful lot, but he concedes a lot as well. And I think when he was at NYCFC, he maybe wasn't quite in that upper echelon of MLS goalkeepers to really hold down a number one position here at NYCFC. But he's doing a decent job at DC United.
And to those who follow the New York City Football Club and know the list of reserve keepers over the years, Cody Mizell, he retired as a player and became the goalkeeper coach for DC United. So also out on the field now helping Luis Barraza and the other keepers warm up. Cody Mizell, who was a wonderful lad and elected to move into the coaching realm.
Certainly, you have more longevity in coaching, don't you?
You would hope.
That's a fact.
Look at Rob Vertughian. Now, how many? 6 coaches for the New York City Football Club, and Rob Vertughian's been here from the start, and he's still here as the keeper coach and set piece coach.
Yeah, look, if you can cement a position at a club and make yourself almost unsackable, which Rob Vertughian has, then look, Bob's also transcended the club game, hasn't he? The domestic game. He's moved into the national team as well. At times he's been helping out with the US men's national team. So that, I'm sure, for Cody Mizell is something that he's looking towards. But first and foremost, it's secure his place as the first team goalkeeping coach here at DC United. But yeah.
We're rolling the New York City lineup in the lower third. If you're not watching this, just listening. No changes, which would be your expectation after the 1-0 win at FC Cincinnati. One change on the bench, which is important to note, the last incoming player in the transfer window, Raul Gustavo, the Brazilian, he's a back. Pascal said in the presser or perhaps afterwards, I can't recall, but did indicate that he could play any number of 4 positions at the back: wing back, full back, central defender in a back 4, left central defender in a back 3. But he is on the bench tonight. I'm going to take an educated guess and say it's unlikely he'll see action tonight, but I'm sure Pascal would like to get him in as soon as possible just to get him acclimated a little bit. But he landed on Wednesday, Matty, from Manchester, where he was working out, trained for the first time on Thursday, and here we are 2 days later.
Look, if they're 3-0 up or 3-0 down, there's nothing wrong with giving him 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
I think really what today is about is just to get him stripped, to get him suited up, and out there experiencing Yankee Stadium, warming up, getting the parameters of the field and things like that, Glenn. But you're absolutely right. You would hope that he wasn't required. And you've got Tanasiewicz there if you need somebody in minute 10 because somebody pulls up. But today for me is all about just experiencing MLS and Yankee Stadium, really, for Gustavo.
All right, let's get to DC United. They have a new coach, but he's only been the manager for 2 games. It took him a while to get overseas. He's a Switzerland national, Rene Weiler. So the 2 games he's coached, they have 2 draws, including 1-1 at home against Inter Miami. Now, granted, it was a bit of a rotated roster for Miami as they continue their quest for a Leagues Cup championship. Nonetheless, 1-1, pretty good for the new guy. But here's a team that's winless in 12, 1 win in 17. And then I look back and it's like, well, they only have 4 wins on the season. Yep. So it has been a struggle. It has been a struggle.
Exactly that.
And the only MLS team eliminated from playoff considerations at this point.
It's a struggle. The last 6 games are a learning curve for Weiler. He's had 2, obviously, and I think they fared pretty well. They had a greater XG in both of those games than the opposition team. That doesn't always mean that much, but certainly against Montreal, they had 2.21 XG compared to 0.49 of Montreal. That's almost a battering, but they couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Their problem has been at both ends of the field. They don't score enough and they concede too many. And that's a bit of a problem, Glenn, when that happens.
Well, somebody asked him about his first couple of games, and he's going to feed right into what you just said there.
Yeah, the team conceded a lot of goals in some of the games, so it's very important to play defensively, more compact, to help each other. And there is a lack of players scoring goals, so it's more difficult to score goals than to defend our own goal. But the players, they prefer to attack and not to defend. But in our situation, we have to do both. And for sure, first of all, to defend well.
What's your favorite part of that? The players prefer to attack than defend. Yeah, it's been...
that's a big problem, because that's how you are when you're a 7-year-old in the playground, isn't it? I want to score goals. I'm not bothered with how many I concede, because it's all about you. And that's a problem, isn't it? They've conceded the most in the Eastern Conference, and they've scored the fewest, and they've lost the most games. You know, every statistic goes against them. So Weiler here in his next 6 games, he's had 2 where he's picked up 2 points, which is good for DC United. It's all about learning the traits of his team, the traits of the players, and which ones he can rely on. And what he's saying there is that they can't play on both sides of the ball. They're willing to run when they've got the ball, and then they let their heads drop when they're out of possession. Football, especially the modern day game, is all about whether you can play on both sides of the ball. And we talked about Alonso Martinez. Yes, top goal scorer, but one of his greatest attributes is how hard he works when out of possession of the ball. He is the first line of defence. And certainly if you've got somebody like Christian Benteke, and I hate to pick on him, he's a wonderful footballer, a wonderful goal scorer, he ain't going to work on the other side of the ball. That's not his game, and there's probably too many players like that in this DC United side, which makes them sometimes dangerous as well, because they can cheat a little bit and they won't track back.
You're leaving players up, and
exactly
if you get a quick counter, which Pascal Janssen is anticipating a more direct attack. That's what he has deciphered. And Benteke, Christian Benteke we're talking about, he was suspended, yellow card accumulation for the game against Miami. So they got the 1-1 result without Benteke. He'll be back in the 11 today for DC United. So, of course, I've got to ask Pascal Janssen about this game in terms of motivation, Matty. I mean, you've been in this position before where maybe even both sides, where the team coming in is heavily favored and you have the advantage maybe from that standpoint, or vice versa, where how do you get up for a team that you should be clobbering? So I tried my best. So here's Pascal talking about this. Well, in America, we call it a trap game, right?
Yep.
When you're meeting a supposed inferior opponent, it is sometimes difficult to be motivated to the extent necessary, as if you were playing the defending MLS Cup champion. Mm-hmm. So only one team has been eliminated from the playoffs out of 30. That's DC United. Mm-hmm. They've got 12 games without a win in MLS. Your players are, they're young guys. They look at the table. They're on social media. Mm-hmm. Words sometimes aren't enough. I'm just wondering, how do you tackle a week like this? We know you've called each game a cup final, those sorts of things. But again, it's DC United. Everybody knows how it's gone for them.
Yeah, well, it's not only DC United. It's about how we created our routines and our discipline throughout the season. So the preparation going into the DC game is no different than how we prepared ourselves going into the Cincinnati game. That is making sure that we know everything that we need to know, have our game plan ready, and making sure that we demand from ourselves the highest standard possible. So the ideal world is it doesn't matter who you play, the consistency has to be there. So that is what we are aiming for.
So you're taking care of it really from day one of preseason till now in trying to.
Yeah.
But it's still a psychological challenge when you say, and sometimes we use the words, hey guys, we know they're in last place, but you got to give the same effort. That doesn't always work.
No, but we always point the fingers to ourselves and just make it about ourselves and not about DC or whatever team we play. We make it about ourselves because that is the only one thing that you can control.
Now, Pascal is always clearly direct with his responses. That was one of the few, somebody who had heard the interview ahead of time walked in and said something to the effect, well, you didn't get a straight answer from Pascal this time. And he just didn't want to, and it wasn't about taking the bait. It's about dealing with the reality of it. That's all. That's, what do you think?
I absolutely think, of course, you have to focus on yourself as well. But I think in any sport, anywhere around the world, whether it's an individual sport, whether that's tennis, and you've got a number one seed playing against the qualifier, sometimes that number one seed just takes their eye off the literal and metaphorical ball a little bit. I know for a fact that when I was playing, if you're playing in a local derby, you're automatically up for that game. Yet if you're playing the team who are bottom, you have to self-motivate. If in a derby game, you're already motivated because the fans are going to be on your back if you lose.
That's interesting. So you think it's the individual responsibility of each player to make sure they're prepared for an event like this, New York City against DC.
Individual, and then, of course, ultimately, it's the coach. It's the coach who lays out the final team talk. For me, quite often, it's that final team talk in the last few minutes before you walk down the tunnel. How they get their point across, how they get you to focus. Individually, of course, you should already be the night before, then the morning of the game, throughout the day. As an individual, you should be focusing on your own personal jobs. But I think ultimately it's the head coach. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. He's the boss. He's the one who gives you the last instructions as you go out. And so often we see the opening 10, 15 minutes of a game are so important, Glenn.
Yeah.
It would have been easy to get up for the game against FC Cincinnati away from home, one of the best teams in the league. But here at home, it might almost, we just beat FC Cincinnati. Of course we're going to beat DC United. I know none of the players actually think like that, but subconsciously sometimes your mind plays little tricks on you like that.
This is what we have to deal with. So, there you have it. New York City, DC United. A couple of notes. Malachi Jones, we watched him working out before the game. So he had the physical staff out there. So we know he's running and he's trying to push through what has been a very difficult time where he's had 2 surgeries. And as we noted, Matty and I, when we got here, we saw him, it was like, wow, when was that game?
Yeah.
Late
June 28th.
Of 2024. So he's been sidelined for that entire amount of time. There was some sort of complication after the first surgery, which resulted in a second. But he says he's working his way back. We see him up at the training facility every now and then. Also at the training facility yesterday was Seymour Reed. Here's Seymour and Tavon Gray, the Jamaican internationals together. Now, Seymour said something interesting. He said, and which I don't think any of us were aware, he was on the preliminary roster for the senior team for Jamaica for World Cup qualifiers. But the roster was released yesterday. He was not on it. Tavon Gray has been capped by Jamaica, but he hasn't been in the best consistent form on the club level, and that's been an issue for Gray. But there's the 2 Jamaicans, and I wanted to give them but Seymour Reed, 17 years old and already under consideration.
Yeah, look, he's shown good early promise, but it's promise alone right now, isn't it? He's got to work his way into playing firstly, scoring goals consistently for the 2 team, and then working his way into getting as many minutes as he can for the first team. But look, he's got time is on his side. He's only 17, as you say.
One other thing before we depart, Maxime Chenot.
Yeah.
Maxime Chenot has announced his retirement. Now, he is very much a fan favorite here for the 8 seasons that he participated with the New York City Football Club, July of 2016. So he came in that summer through the 2017 and 23. And look, he won MLS Cup, Campeones Cup. Here he is holding up the cup the following year, 2022 MLS Cup in 2021. And there's that guy to his left. I think that pairing of Maxime Chanot and Alexander Collins, you're the central defender professionally. You've seen a lot here in MLS over the years, both with us and Sporting KC when you were operating with them. Where did those two rate in your mind in terms of the overall? I know it's kind of tough to grade, but I thought together they were
right up there. I think they look. I'm not going to say they're the first best or the second best.
Sure.
I think that's a bit silly, but certainly they complemented each other so well. Chanot would just head and kick everything, and Collins had a little bit of pace and a bit of guile and a bit of ball playing ability about him as well. One's left-footed, one's right-footed. I truly think they complemented each other so well. We've spoken about it before as well. They didn't speak the same language. They don't speak the same language, which is what I was talking about before. It takes 25 to 50 games for a centre-half pairing to truly gel.
And maybe it takes them a couple of more games because they can't verbally communicate.
Yeah, they were communicating in actions alone the majority of the time, but they became very acclimatized with each other. And, of course, there's no greater compliment than winning. You know, you've won MLS Cup. You are the best team. You are now the best centre-halves.
Well, and we've got Thiago Martins, the designated player, and Justin Hack, not a left footer, but he's improved along the way, but he's been the left central defender. And they've been a good center back pairing, especially the return of Thiago Martins. You can see the difference in the squad. He's back in the 11 today. Chanot, by the way, retired because of a concussion that he suffered in preseason and wasn't recovering from it. So finally gave in. And I remember back in 22, he was with Luxembourg, some friendly fire. He had an elbow to the eye. Remember, he had that surgery.
And he wore the mask for a little while.
He lost vision for 2 weeks, 50% chance of permanent eye damage, according to the doctors at the time. And then, then he wore the mask. Yep. Then he finally just threw it off and went the rest of the way without it. So, Maxime, I think we'll see him in the area. He's got an academy of sorts here in New York City. La Brique, I think it's called La Brique Academy. So we might be seeing something of Maxime along the way. And then I wanted to, this last story, LAFC with Son. I mean, it's going crazy there, the jersey sales. I thought this was interesting. LAFC just partnered with KYPA, an AM radio station in Los Angeles, Korean language radio broadcast now for all LAFC games. I mean, this guy's had an impact.
Yeah, look, I forget the actual numbers, but it was something like 30 or 40% of all South Koreans were Tottenham fans until he moved. It was something that high up that was really driving shirt sales, and a lot of upwardly mobile South Koreans would come in every single game, come into London. Well, not every single game, but many games would come into London, buy up half the club shop as well, leave with a lot of merchandise. It was a huge deal for Tottenham to have a player of his ability, but also of his nationality as well. It was really driving an awful lot of their merchandise sales and their advertising deals as well. So, yeah, look, that's as much as he's a good player, it's more of a marketing thing for me that Son moving to LAFC. He himself has admitted, that was by far and away not his first choice. He would not have gone there, I'm sure, unless the figures spoke.
My favorite part of his story, I can't remember where he went for his first road match, but he was getting a huge ovation, and he was like, "Boy, I never have it on the road in the Premier League like that. No one applauded me." So anyway, all right, hey, we got a game coming up. New York City FC, DC United on this Saturday night, and we will be watching the other games closely. If you're a neutral and just a soccer fan, most likely you're going to be tuning into Philadelphia at FC Cincinnati. Philadelphia leads the Supporters' Shield by 2 points ahead of Cincinnati. And Cincinnati, New York City, they kind of knocked them off that top pedestal last week. So that's a game that we'll watch closely. But other games involving Eastern Conference teams. So the table, the live table is a little bit more fun to get through now.
And look, every game now is so very important. Yeah. Pascal Janssen himself spoke about 10 cup games after that League's Cup little run. So, yes, This is vital. And for me especially, you've won away from home at one of the best teams in the league. Now you've got to do the business against the worst team in the Eastern Conference.
All right, it's coming up at 7:15. That's about 10 minutes from now. It's our pregame show, nycfc.com/radio. And as it is a home game here at Yankee Stadium, you can also follow us on MLS Season Pass starting at 7:30. That's on Apple TV, the drop-down app, where you can listen to the English hometown commentary synced perfectly and beautifully with the video that you'll watch on Apple TV. It's up to you. You don't want to miss this guy. I'm just telling you. For Matty Lawrence. Well, whatever. For Matty, I'm Glenn. Thank you so much for joining us here, and we look forward to joining you for the game. And enjoy it, everybody.